The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mind Garden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of the Sandy and Toddcast. This is going to be a good one, Sandy, as always.
As always, Todd, this week we have Sue and Damon from the Adirondack Park Paranormal Society, or A.P.P.S, and they're going to give us a really great intro into the world of paranormal investigating in the Adirondack Mountains.
And all the other stuff they do, because there's a ton of other stuff that they're involved with when it comes to their investigations. So we're going to dig into that, and I think you'll find out by listening that it's kind of like us looking in the mirror because they're so similar to us.
They're kind of our twins.
Absolutely. Season 2, Episode 8, Ghosts of the Adirondacks, next on the Sandy and Toddcast.
Feeling a bit lost? Not sure what's holding you back? A transformational tarot session with Eclectic Path Wellness can provide the guidance you need, combining tarot and coaching to help you understand and navigate the changes you may face. Heal, empower, and clarify your path. Connect with us on Facebook at Eclectic Path Wellness.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day, all while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Season 2, Episode...
No.
Ocho? I don't know.
Wait. It's Season
2.
For 2.
Okay. What is 3?
Episode 3
okay.
is 3.
Well, I just thought 2 makes more sense than 3 That doesn't make sense to me.
And then Episode 8 would be Wheat.
Wheat?
Yes.
Episode Duh?
I just like hearing you say duh.
Is that what it is?
It is.
Season Duh, Episode Tweet. I don't know what the hell it is. I give up. Sandy and Toddcast.
That's us. How could you miss us? You know, we're Season Duh. Episode Wheat.
Season Duh, Episode Wheat. I don't like it.
I'm not letting you count in French ever again.
So later on, we're going to let you in on an interview that we did on a live cast with Damon and Sue from the Adirondack Paranormal Society.
Yeah, Adirondack Park Paranormal Society. Right. Yep. Or A.P.P.S. It's always easier to just call them A.P.P.S. Much easier. And just two really wonderful people that I have had the pleasure, the honor, the privilege of working with a couple of times now. And they are very, very seasoned paranormal investigators. Their group is fantastic. Loved getting to work with everybody in that group. We just kind of meshed really well. And so they're going to join us. And we were kind of joking with them, Todd, that they're sort of our twins.
There's a lot going on there. First off, I want to say that we're very connected in the way that we believe investigations should go. That's one thing that we have in common. The second thing that I'm really, really impressed by is the steps they take to do an investigation. It's not just show up with equipment, start the investigation, wrap it up, and go home. There's a lot of investigative work ahead of time, a lot of preparation, a lot of history that needs to be taken care of, interviews, all that kind of stuff. They actually have their own, a part of their investigation team work specifically with those little radar things and looking for things in the ground and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's crazy what they do to get to the bottom line of what's going on. And you don't see a lot of that on the TV shows, certainly. And I don't know of a lot of groups that go to those levels to figure out what's going on in these locations.
They're just very serious about everything, and they take it with so much respect. They give everything so much respect, and that is something that I love, because I never go into any type of investigation without total respect for the location, its history, and any spiritual energy that could be residing there. Positive or negative energy.
Right. So looking forward to talking with, hearing from them again on this interview and listening to it again, because it was a very good interview. And the nice thing about this is it's really part 1, and part 2 with them will come down the line when they actually have a chance to go through some of the evidence that they got in one of their investigations. We'll have them back and have you guys, and it's the investigation you went on, and have them back and you guys discuss what you saw, what you heard, what you experienced, and then we'll maybe have some actual evidence to share to back that stuff up.
That was an amazing investigation. One of my favorites. It was also one of the investigations that sort of threw me off a little bit, made me a little more uneasy than other investigations I've been a part of and conducted. So it'll be really, really great to get back with Damon and Sue and dig in and discuss everything that happened that night.
We're going to talk a little bit about movies really quickly, because I'm on one of the episodes we've done recently, and I don't know if it was an audio cast or a live cast. I can't keep anything
track.
We were talking about the fact that Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, is coming out or out right now or something like that. And we were talking a little bit about the storyline of the Conjuring movies, which I believe started in 2013. There are now 8 movies out.
Yeah.
This is Conjuring 3, but there's others along the way. There's additions of the Annabelle story that also tie into it. There's stories about the Nun, which also tie into it. There's another movie that I'm not sure exactly how it ties in at this point, but there's all this stuff, and it kind of starts off in 2013 with The Conjuring and a story around Ed and Lorraine Warren and an investigation they did early on in their career about the time of the Amityville horror.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that the Warrens did were right around that same time, right around the 70s, early 70s, early 80s. Those were big times for the Warrens. Lots of stuff comes out of there.
Yeah. So it's a great movie. It's one of my favorites of the modern kind of stuff, because I thought in 2013 when they created this movie, it really was a throwback to the good old Amityville horror days and The Exorcist and all that kind of stuff. It was created, obviously there's a CGI and all that stuff in this movie, because that's the way it is these days, but it wasn't so overly done that it was unbelievable.
Right. It was really good. Now, in the first Conjuring movie, the story was based on what actually happened to the Perron family.
Right.
And we will do we're just talking about this. We're going to do a future episode and kind of go into depth about the original story. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the movies, about the Warrens. But I love the original Conjuring movie, even though they did take a little bit of liberty with it.
Sure.
It was so well done, just so well done, that you sort of move that little idea aside and just enjoyed the movie. It was really, really good. A few weeks ago, we talked about there are something like 8 movies in this franchise. And I didn't even realize there were 8 movies. I've never watched the Annabelle movies because I've never been that interested in the whole Annabelle thing.
I'll tell you this. I hate to say this. Don't bother.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in it either. And for me, it was a little tacky. Because here's this doll and she's setting fire to the house on the stove and, running around the house and stuff like that. And it's just, for me, I had to say no to that.
Yeah.
It just wasn't right for me. So I've stayed away from the Annabelle. I did watch the first Annabelle because it does tie into the first Conjuring movie.
Right.
They actually, at the end of that movie, they actually bring the Annabelle doll home and put it in the case and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And that's what goes into the Annabelle story. But
now, John Zaffis, who is the nephew of Ed and Lorraine Warren, he has his haunted artifacts museum in Connecticut. And I've had the pleasure, I really like John Zaffis. He's very don't pull any punches, kind of streetwise, good guy.
Yep.
And I've had the pleasure of having him and speaking to him. I've actually been able to speak to him a couple of times during his lectures, after his lectures. And he is a great guy. And he will talk about Annabelle. And he truly believes that doll holds an evil entity. And they take that very, very seriously.
Well, and here's the thing. I'm not saying that I don't believe that a doll or an object can hold energy. Just the way, in this case, how it was perceived in the movie or presented in the movie was a little tacky to me.
And that's the point. I think that it's when you translate real life stories into movies, you have to be so careful because you really want to represent what actually happened, what the actual situation is. You want to realistically portray that. If you're going to say it's based on something, you want to at least give it some sort of value. And I think when you take too much liberty with a movie, it sort of takes away from the fear factor. It takes away from the validity of what actually is going on. And that's what I find with the Annabelle stuff.
I also find that with a lot of paranormal investigation shows because of the over dramatization of what goes on. And we've discussed that 100 billion times on this podcast.
I know.
I know that coming up, it's discussed as well on the podcast we got coming up today. I think we touch on it. And
yeah.
But so then you said to me, well, I only saw Conjuring 1. So you went back and watched Conjuring 2 and then realized you had seen that one.
Yeah. Yesterday, I actually watched it. I had some free time. So because I work at home and it's kind of a slow week for me work-wise. And so I said, well, I have a little time. I'm going to watch The Conjuring 2. And I got about a quarter way into the movie and realized I had seen it. But I had seen it years ago when it first came out. So I didn't really remember a lot of it. Now, The Conjuring 2 was based on another Ed and Lorraine Warren case. This one was in Enfield, in the UK.
Right.
And this was a really scary one. The movie was very well done. It was shot beautifully. It was a very scary movie. The original case was 2 young girls, 11 and 13, living in Enfield who had pretty bad poltergeist activity going on. Now, what's really interesting is I've heard Maurice Gross talk a couple of times on podcasts. He was the main investigator, if you will, back in the 70s, who called in Ed and Lorraine at one point. And he's very old now. He's probably in his 80s or 90s. And he still has his accent, so he's difficult to understand. But it really terrified them. After the fact, the one little girl did admit to maybe faking a little bit of what went on. But if you listen to the original tapes, that is creepy. It is very creepy. And I thought this movie did a great job of taking the reality and moving it over into the movie. Right.
And it was also where the Nun from the Nun movies of the franchise kind of started.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, you said you're going to watch the Nun now. I will just say this. The Nun movie is good. It's different than what you're probably going to expect. A little unrealistic. I don't know if there's any truth to it. But the Nun in The Conjuring 2 is CAF. Creepy as beep.
Yep. I know. And it was so funny because I've seen pictures of the Nun movie because I was looking it up. I want to watch it. And now I have an aunt who's a nun, and believe me, she didn't look like anything like that. And but
no, are you sure? I mean, how old was this nun? Because let's be honest. Again, I'm not ripping on anybody's religion.
No,
but in the day, back in the 50s and 60s, some of those habits and
I know. My Aunt Helen, luckily, was a pretty progressive, I guess if you could call it that, nun. She's in her 90s now. She's still alive. She lives in Buffalo, New York, and I grew up with a nun in my family. She was my grandfather's sister, and her nun name, I call it the nun name. Her nun name was Sister Laurenita. And she was fantastic. She would come home on the weekends to the Utica area and everybody get together. She'd play cards. She'd have a drink.
Wow.
She was pretty progressive. And I just adore her. And so she was a little different than this nun, though. This nun, as soon as in one scene in The Conjuring 2, Lorraine walks into what I think is Ed's kind of study where he paints.
Right.
And the picture of the nun is behind her. And they have this great glow. The lighting on it is perfect. It creeped me out. And it takes a lot to creep me out. You're talking somebody who walked into a black mist. It takes a lot to creep me out. And that nun creeps me out. So I'm kind of excited, even just for the being creeped out factor. I can't wait to watch this movie.
I think the storyline is like it's a nun, like that vision of the nun comes to him in dreams or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he painted it. But there's a backstory to it that you eventually find out. So your aunt, you said, was a nun, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I think she sounds like, I want you to watch a movie for me.
Okay.
It's about progressive nuns, and it's not Sister Act. Okay. It's not. But it's called Change of Habit.
Okay.
And it stars Mary Tyler Moore and Elvis Presley. Now,
I love it.
It's not the best acting in the world. That's not the point. The music is good, and it's just a little bit of fun from, I think that was the early 70s, like maybe 71. So just
I'll
do me a
have
favor,
to, I'm
please
going to
watch
watch
it.
it. I'm going to watch it.
got a
Everybody
great
else
song.
needs to watch it too, and then we'll talk about it in a future episode a little
If
bit.
you're in old habits, changing your ways. Yeah, that kind of thing.
That was very good.
Yeah, I know. All right. Time to move along here and get to our conversation this week. Bring on Damon, bring on Sue as well. Season 2, episode 8 starts right now. Ghosts of the Adirondacks. And it's on the Sandy and Toddcast. Let me ask you about the two people we're about to talk to, because they have, I don't know them as well as you do. And yet I feel like I've known them a long time. Because they're that kind of people, you know.
Yeah.
In the paranormal research world, whatever, there are. I don't like to label people, but sometimes you have people that really think they're really something, and then you have people who are down to earth who really care about the investigation and how it's handled and the people aspect of it, and that's the thought process I get with Damon and Sue.
Yes, and they're very serious about it, but they enjoy it. You know, it's a passion. They love it, but they're very serious about it, and they take it seriously. And those are the kind of people that I like to work with, because we're like-minded, and I don't treat it like a game. Right. I don't treat it as a hobby. It's like, ooh, this fun little thing that I can do. To me, it's serious, especially having abilities like Sue does. You know, it's very important. And we were just talking in our group chat with Sue and Damon, I think last night or this morning, actually, about how it's so validating when you have abilities and they can be validated by the scientific equipment. So they're very like we are in that mindset. And they're just people that you really feel comfortable with right away.
I would say they're kind of like Sandy and Todd, but probably cooler. What do you say?
Yeah. Probably a lot
it
cooler than
doesn't
we
take
are.
much to get that far, but that's how I would kind of put them in that category.
I think so, probably.
All right. Well, Damon Jacobs, the founder and manager of the Adirondack Park Paranormal Society, or A.P.P.S. They're based in the heart of Adirondack Park in New York State. A.P.P.S. is an organization that was created and founded with the purpose of paranormal research and investigation. Damon's been involved in the paranormal realm since 2008, and his team is comprised of investigators, researchers, and evidence reviewers.
Now, Sue Groff is the co-assistant team manager for A.P.P.S. She's been interested in the paranormal since she was a child. She actually has some stories that we can ask her about. She's intuitive, and she gets most of her information through her dreams.
I was going to ask her that. Yeah.
Yes. And that's her process. That's how she does it. And then she's also a fantastic researcher. So she takes the information she gets in her dreams and she uses that in her research to come up with sort of a whole story. And she is a total asset to the A.P.P.S. team. In her spare time, she likes to garden. She likes genealogy, NASCAR. My mother would love Sue. Outdoor activities and sci-fi, among other things. I've had the pleasure of working with both of them. Sue a couple of times. Damon just a few weeks ago at an investigation. And I'm so excited, along with you, to have them with us today.
Damon and Sue from A.P.P.S. There they are.
Hello.
Hi, guys. Yay.
Very nice. I'll give you like a golf clap.
Big hands,
Very
a little
good.
bit of feeling.
How you guys doing today?
Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
So I hope we did you justice with our intros. There's so much more that we can talk about. We've already been saying we'd love to have you back whenever you're willing to come back, because there's so many things we can actually talk about.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, let's dive in and talk about you guys. I mean, like before paranormal came into your life. Like Damon, for instance, for you, what got you interested? Was it an event? Was it a movie? Was it an experience you had? What got you involved in paranormal research?
So, all right. I don't remember what the hell year it was. I was working for a custodial service many years ago. This had to have been early 2000s.
Back when you were a wee lad.
Back when I still had more hair. It was actually almost before the whole ghost hunters fad came out, and it was like I would say like pre-ghost hunters, but just around the same time as like Ghost Lab and stuff like that. And which we base a lot of our work, we do it off from their style on it. But so working at a facility, it was graveyard shift, overnight shift, cleaning. And there was, it was one of those deals where there's nobody else in the building but me and the other guy cleaning the place. And there was, we had very pronounced footsteps in the upstairs of a building, which is barricaded off, locked off, plywood over the door frames, chained off kind of deal. And then next thing you know, the door that's literally at the top of the stairs is plywood and chained up is rattling. The dude that was with me, white as a sheet, like stuttering, like, I'm like, all right, cool. So somebody broke in and they're upstairs. No big deal. Called security. They come up, check the place out. Place is empty. I'm like, okay. Yep, that's not explainable. No way else for them to get in. There was no other access into the building from that location. It was actually some place that we did wind up many years later investigating. And it was kind of on my bucket list for years. But that kind of brought me into it. And then kind of like, okay, well, obviously something else is going on. Kind of the old X-Files quote, "There's something out there" kind of deal. And then ghost hunters picked up, a couple teams started forming in the area. I signed on to this one team thinking it was a great deal, long story short, it didn't turn out the way it was supposed to be, and they weren't in it for the right reasons. And I since left the team and said, you know what, hell with it. I'm just going to start my own team.
Yep.
And here we are. Started it in 2008 under a different name, renamed, rebranded in 2011. And here we are, 2021, and kind of still kicking. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We'll go with still kicking. Yeah.
Now, Sue, you grew up in a house that had activity.
Yeah, I grew up in an old farmhouse built around 1860. And there was always some kind of activity, whether it was the footsteps, whether it was doors opening, conversations going on the upper floor when everybody was downstairs. My family likes to tell the story of we were all sitting around watching Lawrence Welk, and there was a whole bunch of walking going on above our heads, and we were all downstairs watching TV. We all followed the footsteps with our eyes. And we looked over at our parents, and my mother would just say, don't worry about it. It's just meet us. It was one of the former owners just walking around. Don't worry about it. And she would kind of poo-poo it away. This happened regularly. So to me, okay, so there's bumps in the night or whatever. It's there. You acknowledge it. You move on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the mentality that I always had growing up. So I respected it, but I was never completely afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, thank God your family watched Lawrence Welk, because I thought I was the only one that tuned in every once in a while.
Oh, no, it was a staple.
Listen, to watch those polyester pantsuits dance around that stage was something incredible. But also, like, how young were you now? You heard the bumps, but your other family members heard it as well.
Yeah.
Kind of knew stuff was going on. When did you realize you had additional senses or additional experiences?
I went to a friend's house, and I could hear stuff going on at her house that she couldn't hear.
Right.
And I asked my father about it. My father had the ability, he knew when somebody was going to call, or he would think about somebody and they would either show up at the house or they would call. So I remember asking him how and why, and he goes, some people have gifts, some people don't.
So he did acknowledge it, though? He understood that he had a gift. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
But he wouldn't, it's not something, but that's just the way my parents were. They didn't dwell on stuff like that. Right. You're not special, but it is a gift.
Gotcha.
So,
and so most of your stuff comes to you, I think, in dreams?
Actually, the dream part started when I was, I had to be in my early 20s. I got into genealogy. Studying my own family background, and every time I hit a brick wall, my father would tell me, well, just try talking to him. And I remember saying to him, yeah, Dad, they're dead. They've been dead for years. And Dad said, just talk to him. You'd be surprised what you're going to find out. And I would get a dream, either talking to them directly in my dream, or them talking to someone else and me standing like third person watching what was going on. Mm-hmm. And that would be that clue that I needed to get past the brick wall for genealogy. Well, then I met Damon through one of the investigations that his team was doing. And I had already known about the Hotel Saranac, because I had worked there. But that's when I started researching and finding out that I could connect my dreams and my research together and get a bigger picture.
Sure. Stick around. We'll be right back. In the meantime, here's something pretty cool to check out.
Tarot time. If you're listening to this podcast, the divine messages are definitely for you. Let's combine science and magic, shall we? Root cause analysis, business planning, counseling, and good old-fashioned intuitive tarot readings so we can improve your near future circumstances by addressing your present scenarios. Please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. For more in-depth tarot consultations, please book your readings at positivetarotwisdom.com. Infinite love and blessings for everyone.
Now, let's get back to the episode.
Damon, obviously, you have respect for Sue, and it goes both ways. There are a lot of...
Sometimes.
Listen, man.
There was that one time at an investigation.
Todd, I think you're right. It is like Sandy and Todd.
Yep, this could be a lot of trouble in some. What I wanted to ask you is and I don't understand this, but again, I believe everybody has their own thought processes and philosophies on this, and I try to be open to everybody's belief system or what they're thinking, and at least listen to it and see how that coordinates with what my belief system is. There are some people who investigate who are just investigators, and it's got to be scientific. And they refuse to acknowledge the feelings, the interactions, the experiences that someone who has those abilities or is able to use those abilities, like Sue and like Sandy. What's your thought process? And obviously, you welcome it, but why do you think so many people question those things?
It's they question it and they stray away from it because it's not the norm.
Yes.
It's their upbringing. It's how they were taught as they were when they were children growing up. It's not the norm, so they run away from it.
There's also a lot of fakers out there.
Right.
Yes.
There's that.
And this is one of the reasons why I don't try to put a name to what I do or what I have. Because again, there's a lot of fakers out there. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I get this information, I don't tell them how I get the information. I just, have you tried this? Yeah. How did you know that? That's just question.
And that's one of the things, like when I first started the team, where I originally started in that particular town, village, whatever you want to call it, the team that I used to belong to, pretty much left a really bad taste in the entire town's mouth. In regards to paranormal investigation, in a really bad way. Took a haunted location, went as far as to calling in Sci-Fi Network. It was all over TV for forever and a day. It's been re-simulcast with different names over the years. Different victims and witnesses, but the same exact people, kind of deal. And the dude he made money off from it. Left, right, and sideways, which is not what this is about. It never, ever is what it's about. It's always about finding, getting the answers, trying to find closure for families, letting people tell their story, the spirits tell their stories. It's not about making a buck. And it was like this big, huge con job, in the village. So for us to even be able to have investigated the first building we were able to investigate in that area was a milestone and a half for the team. I mean, I started up in 2008, and it wasn't until 2014 when we got our first big gig. Yeah. Because it took that long to try and build the reputation and build a rapport that, hey, we're not out to make a quick buck and to screw you guys over, with a village-wide blessing to make all the ghosts disappear in the area kind of deal. It just doesn't work that way.
I like that thought process a lot, and we've had a chance to talk about how we feel about things. You can have all the research in the world, and you can have all the experiences from those who are sensitive and all that kind of stuff, but we don't have the answers 100%. We can tell you what we think is going on and what we've experienced and what might be going on, but when somebody says to me, that place has a demon in it, or that place, it's all evil, they want to hurt. I can't go there. I can say, it seems like there might be something dark there. You may want to be careful, blah, 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 blah. But it's really hard for me to take somebody who makes a definitive statement as what's going on and take it 100%. So who's that? Who's that in the background?
That would be my pain in the butt dog.
What's your dog's name?
Hang on. That would be Coda.
Coda.
We love dogs.
Yeah, we love dogs.
Yeah. So what we were talking about with where my upbringing and stuff came with that. Growing up, I went to church every Sunday. It was regular as clockwork. 10 o'clock in the morning, we were at Sunday service, Presbyterian service. Church was a merged church. It was Presbyterian and Methodist. Years ago, before I was ever born, they did a merge to consolidate the two churches in town. I went up through the whatever the rankings you want to call it. Yeah, I was confirmed as an elder just before I left the church. It just wasn't my way of thinking, and my it's kind of like you, Sandy, with yes, there's a God. Do I want to practice this way to say, yeah, okay, that's where we're at? Not so much. And like we experienced at the last investigation we were all on, is certain religions don't exactly take kindly to what we do as a practice.
Right.
So there's that part of it that I have the experience in with, which is helpful. Actually, it was very helpful at that last investigation.
Yes, it was.
But there's also the, I not like I want to be, tooting my own horn, but, or saying I'm a self-proclaimed empath. But yeah, I have empathic abilities. As opposed to Sue, where she loves just going and hanging out in the cemetery all damn day long. You won't find me there because my head just gets
it's
crowded.
Okay. I will be traveling somewhere. I will take a 20-mile sidetrack.
It's like we're looking in a freaking mirror.
I know, right?
I'm serious. I love cemeteries. I'm an empath, but I kind of handle myself with them out of respect, and I never have issues.
Building your skill set to build that wall.
Sure.
Whereas like if we'll do an initial walkthrough in a location, like it's funny, like, and a couple of the newer members caught on to this. One of the last investigations before the one we all went on, Sandy, where literally like Sue will be walking with me, and then all of a sudden next thing you know, Sue's dropped back about 6 paces along with the rest of the team, and they're just watching me, seeing what I'm doing, because literally I'll stop at the top of the stairs or something like that, and get that little, all right, something's going on here. And next thing I know, I might do one of these or something like that, and next thing you know, they're putting a tape X on the floor, and I'm still moving on. They're marking out hot spots for where they're going to come back later on that night.
So you do have some sensitivities and some abilities as well.
I do.
Yeah, he does.
I haven't developed it to a major extent, but I guess I do.
There was one point, and we'll get into the investigation in a little bit, but there was one point at the end of the night, Damon, when we were in the sanctuary and we were sitting kind of next to each other, and I looked over at you and I thought, he's in tune. He knows what's going on, because I knew what was going on too. So you kind of know. And we both, I kind of came to a conclusion of why it was kind of quiet in there. And I said it, and he's like, yeah, I agree with you. So I could feel that he had its intuitive abilities that night. Like,
I guess I can be as humble as Dennis, where I say I don't really know that I have this stuff, but I guess I do. No, because that's about where I'm at.
He's not humble.
No.
It's like looking in a mirror.
Screw you, Sue.
There you go. That's it.
You don't know humble. You don't know humble.
To tell the truth, the reason we let him go ahead first is if he falls through a floor, we're good to go. We know not to go there.
You know not to go there.
Sure. Send the handicap kid first. Yeah. I see how it is.
Oh, the love is unbelievable, I'm telling
you. Yeah, you love the hater.
Let's talk a little bit about the group. Now, how many members do you have now?
Oh, good Lord. I think we're at 16 now.
Yeah.
No. Yeah?
No,
16?
we just lost 2.
Yeah, that's why we're at 16.
Okay, 16.
Yeah, we're at 15, 16-ish.
So when you go on an investigation, you've got 16 folks. Are you all showing up?
No. They're not all investigators.
Yeah, no. We started out with everybody came on as an investigator. Okay, great, cool, whatever. Problem with that is you get everybody wants to be an investigator, but nobody wants to actually do the actual hard work. It's not as glorified as you see on Ghost Hunters. Right. Whereas it might be like we're talking about just before we came on the air. It's, you might have a 4 or 5 hour investigation. That's 3-4 weeks worth of reviewing footage and audio and photo, and not everybody wants to do that, nor do they have the attention span to do that. Yeah. So out of the 16 people, I'd say there's probably a core of 4 or 5 of us that actually go and actually have boots on the ground in an investigation.
Yeah.
And the rest of them either do review, or they do research, or they do a combination of both. We have some consulting members, like Dennis, who we use and abuse to get fame and fortune.
How's that working out for you, by the way?
Not so much. I haven't seen a goddamn penny yet. But
he's a Scrooge.
He is. He's a penny pincher, but hey, it's good company. But yeah, we have a of the 16, not everybody is out boots on the ground, and of that 16, several of them are part of our sub team, we will call it Relic Seekers, which is a kind of something we've kind of developed over the last year or so.
Yeah, let's talk about Relic Seekers. What exactly is that?
Okay, so what was it, a year ago? Two pre-COVID.
It's been 2 years.
It's been one PC. We'll call it 1 year pre-COVID. It was one of the investigations. Was it Heaven Hill or was it Stagecoach? Pre-Stagecoach. So it was Heaven Hill.
It had to be Heaven Hill. Because Stagecoach, we already had our gear.
Yeah. So we did an investigation in Lake Placid, a place called Heaven Hill Farm. We can't really go into details about that because the management, it's a revolving board. And they since changed hands. So we're not allowed to disclose what we were able to disclose even 2 years ago. So we did an investigation up there. It does have links to and ties to John Brown Farm, Underground Railroad, you name it, it's happened. Mm-hmm. It's in Lake Placid. It's a thing.
Right.
So during the investigation, we were realizing we were getting a lot of weird reactions on the equipment that we couldn't explain, which correlated with
and feedback on some of the recorders.
Yeah, and feedback on some of the recorders, which correlated with even one of our members was a hell of a dowsing rod expert. And he was getting hits left, right, and sideways out in the area where we were having the same issues. So I did a little research. And I think there's only like maybe one other team that actually uses metal detectors in their research or their work in paranormal investigation. And it's like they only used it for trying to find underground conduits and electrical lines and pipes and stuff like that, because that can affect your EMF readings, that can affect your dowsing rods, your K2s, all that fun stuff.
Underground
so I was
water.
Like, exactly, underground water. So I was like, all right, cool. Well, we'll get one just so we can kind of mark out, where there might be underground power lines, stuff like that. So we at least know when we walk over X area, we're not getting a 7.8 spike on the K2 and going, okay, this might be something.
Right.
We'll come to find out it's just buried cable.
Yeah. So we always do a baseline walkthrough before we ever start an investigation to begin with. So of that, I got the machine, I started working with it, and then I got onto a few metal detecting groups on Facebook, and I noticed somebody had popped up a post, and they had this, they had done some metal detecting around their property or something like that, and they found this medallion kind of buried out on was it the northwest corner of a building? Something like that.
No,
it was a specific corner or specific side of the building. I feel like it was the northwest corner of the property. And in looking at it, and I talked to one of our former members who is very huge in Wicca and other types of stuff like that and protection spells, and they're like, yeah, this is a protection talisman. They should never have dug it up or at least put it back where they found it, afterwards. And then we started thinking, okay, well, in my years of watching cable network TV and all those fun paranormal shows, I watched a show called Haunted Collector, which is,
yes.
A lot of, you get energy that's residual. It's tied to artifacts.
Yep.
Yes.
So in my thinking, I'm like, okay, so what happens if there's an artifact that some Joe Schmo down the road decided they were going to bury in their property 100 plus years ago, that might possibly have something attached to it that may still be causing A, B, and C. We can't pinpoint it in the damn house, but it might be somewhere on the property.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's when we started expanding out to, okay, well, we're going to use metal detectors with our paranormal research in order to maybe possibly expand our
services,
our toolkit and our services, and find out if maybe X, Y, and Z might be a cause of the situation, and then like everything else, you get the snowball effect. That little bit of little snowflake rolling down the hill turns to a big one, and it's like, okay, well, if we're already out here doing A, B, and C, checking out for possible relics that might possibly be have residual energy, stuff like that, why don't we just add another community service to our repertoire, and started saying, okay, well, we have no problem doing property research, because you give Sue a bone when it comes to a property, and she'll come out with a 3-inch 3-ring binder in like 2 nights of, oh, by the way, there's this, like Heaven Hill, for instance. They're like, oh, no, this never happened. She's like, oh, but I have this, and this, or an appendix.
I literally gave them a binder
summary.
of their own history.
I mean, literally, an English teacher would be like drooling in awe of the amount of
She comes up with
work.
things that I can't even, I have, and I do some good researching, but Sue comes up with things that I'd never be able to dig into. It's amazing.
And we don't pass anything off to our clients unless it's double checked and verified with our research. We don't give anything like, oh, well, Joe Blow down the road told me this, so it's got to be true.
I read it on Facebook.
Yeah, it was on Facebook, so it has to be true.
Got to be true.
And so we're like, all right, well, if we're already doing this massive deep dive on the property, on the graves research, on the genealogy research, why don't we go a step further and start doing, and adding a service to the community of looking for relics, doing more deep dive on the properties, not paranormal per se, but just doing the other end of it, just, looking for, possible family heirlooms and stuff like that to help out the client, as far as even, okay, somebody lost their wedding band a year ago in such and such location. We'll come out and see what we can do to help you, something like that. Which then evolved into, okay, well, if we're already doing this, well, we're not that far away from assisting with law enforcement for doing evidence recovery and helping them out there, which a lot of metal detecting teams do. And then magnet fishing scene came into the world, so now we have, we've added to our inventory with magnet fishing gear.
I didn't know you guys have that. That's pretty cool too.
Oh yeah. We're seriously adding onto the inventory. In fact, we just purchased an underwater camera that can go on a pole that can go down like 50 feet, and we can check wells, cellar holes, ravines. We have a certified scuba diver on the team. I do snorkeling. So we've literally expanded to this whole deal, which is ever evolving. And now we're on a resource list with another group that is popular on Facebook called Adventures with Purpose, They work a lot of missing persons cases that involves underwater, possibly vehicles in the water, stuff like that. They're a bunch of technical divers. So we've actually got ourselves on their resource database in case they're ever in our area. They can use us for resources in regards to property research, area research, location, an extra diver, equipment, you name it. So we've kind of gone from, okay, a 4-member team going out and, okay, let's be like, Jason Haas from TAPS, to, okay, now we're doing something that no other paranormal team that I'm aware of, at least in our area, has ever done before or is doing.
And that whole story there just lends itself to my comment earlier about these teams. And again, I'm not trying to put anybody down, but teams that come in, they've got a REM pod, they've got a K2 and a recorder and some sort of spirit box. And at the end of their investigation, they've got the entire thing laid out, and they've done a cleansing, and they've done all this kind of stuff. And it's like, it really doesn't work that way. It sounds like you guys are taking it that step further to get just more information.
And we don't do cleansings on a building as part of our service with our team. If we feel that the place needs to be cleansed, we're going to refer you to somebody that's what they do. That's their job. They have accreditation. We're not going to be like, okay, we bought a stick of sage down at the local farmer's market. We're just going to burn this until it goes out and we're cool. No, it doesn't happen like that.
If it's not done right, it's going to backfire on the client anyways, and we don't want that.
Right.
Part of what we do is educate. So when they say, when we're done, we let them know, we feel whether it's good or bad, or this is something that you can't interact with. If you want them to back off, you have to ask them.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, that's part of what we do. And that's part of the reason why I do the research I do. It's part of the education.
Right. Yep. I love that.
Me too.
If we can educate them as to what's there, and cut their fear down to, preferably zero, but at least cut their fear down, because sometimes it's just the fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if we could narrow that down to something that's manageable for them, that's really the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of that with for instance, where we started in Saranac Lake, a lot of the business owners there, it's the area is, it's almost similar, Sandy, to being in Utica or Old Forge. It's a lot of old money.
Yeah.
It's a lot of old ways. That stuff is hoodoo voodoo. We can't have it. It's bad for business. Well, sorry to tell you, it's actually your business is going to boom if you're on, for instance, Hotel Saranac. They're trying to get on the haunted hotel registry.
Yeah.
Their business will skyrocket with no problem whatsoever. Once they're on that registry, because you're going to get every single paranormal junkie from the lower 48 trying to go over there to hang out and catch A, B, and C from room whatever on their EVP machine at 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh God, yeah. If you don't get anything there, you're not doing it right. So
walking through.
Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't smack you in the face when you walk in the door, it's not for you.
Yeah.
I'd like to segue at some point here. We got some investigation stuff to talk about, but I've got one more question I wanted to ask you, and it really is about the energy of the team, because I'm a firm believer that the people who are investigating, who are part of the group, and in your case, you've got an extended family of people that you work with. I think that energy and that interaction is so important to the investigations, whether they're out, doing research outside the building or whatever. I still think that all plays a part. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Oh, definitely. And Sandy can attest to it. She watched us, in action a couple weekends ago. And even the newer members, when you were interacting with Sarah and Brett, even those guys, they've only been on the team for less than a year.
Yeah.
And we're already driving. We know each other's movements. We can click. We can get set up and torn down relatively quickly. So and that's the thing it's not cut out for everybody.
And that's fine. I mean, we tell people that when they come for an interview. Look, this isn't for everybody. And that's why we put them on probation.
Yeah, we give them a little probation period. If no questions asked, you want to bail out tomorrow because
this isn't
got
for
the
you?
heebie-jeebies. See you bye. No big deal. No sweat off our backs. On the same token, you need to understand that we have a reputation to uphold.
Yep.
We've investigated several registered historical landmarks We have a very high-end clientele we've dealt with and still deal with on a regular basis. Integrity is huge.
Yes, first and foremost.
And we've let people go for integrity issues. It's in a zero tolerance policy we have in our handbook. If you at any point in time, if there's a hint of you falsifying your whatever, see you bye. We can't deal with that. That's not, especially with the clients we have, some of the businesses we've dealt with and still deal with on a regular basis. We can't have integrity issues.
And speaking to the whole chemistry idea, people can tell me now. Sue and I worked together. We had a great time. We worked very well together.
Yeah.
And so I already knew Sue, but I didn't know anybody else on the team. And Dennis or anybody else could tell me a million times, everybody's great and it'll be great to work with them. But until you actually are in that situation of meeting everybody, seeing how your personalities jive, seeing how their personalities jive with each other and how you fit into it, you just don't know. And one thing that was really, really cool for me was it was like instantly, we all had dinner beforehand. We all just instantly liked each other. I got good feelings about everybody. There was great chemistry between Dave and Dennis and I with the team and within the team itself. And so that lends, again, to a great investigation because everybody knows how to work together well. And I love that. It's great.
And I saw that when I went down to Sylvan Beach with you guys.
Yes.
Again, I was coming in as the outsider. And we walked in, we did what we had to do, and we got some good stuff there.
Yeah, we did. We sure did get some really good stuff. I was very happy when we left.
And the thing with that, too, is, if you don't have a good team that knows how each of us work and how we click, it lends yourself to some dangerous scenarios. One of the investigations that Dennis helped us out with at an old sanatorium, I mean, if we weren't like on the spot with knowing how each other's normal actions are and reactions, it could have went to a really bad outcome.
It could have got ugly quickly.
It could have got really bad really quick. And I've seen scenarios in the news even where I've seen teams go in, just a 2-person team or, whatever, and they'll split up. And next thing you know, person A is, attacking person B with an axe because they got possessed. And next thing you know, it's on the headlines of, ghost hunting team goes rogue, blah, 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 blah. You don't need that kind of stuff.
Right.
That's some bad PR and some bad stuff going on.
So he's a little like me, but then he says, screw you, Sue. So he's a little like you. And then there's Sue, who's a little like you, but also a little like me. Because if you notice this, like she's got she's got the talents and all that kind of stuff. She's got the gifts. And he and I are more of the, the investigative and blah, 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 blah kind of guy. But he's the one who said, screw you, Sue. And then she's the one always making fun of stuff that he does. So it's kind of like it's us, but kind of intertwined us.
It's so weird and yet so endearing all at the same time. I love them. Damon, one thing I love about
Did you stalk him? You did stalk him.
No, not at all. Actually, Damon friend requested me. Damon,
so then he's like you, right?
Damon friend requested me a couple of weeks before our investigation, which I thought was very, very smart and very thoughtful because he wanted to get to know me, knowing that we were going to be working together. And I probably would have done the same thing at some point myself as well. But Damon really enjoys this. I love this about him. He enjoys our podcast. He binge listens to our podcast. He's listened to every episode so far. He'll randomly message me with some funny thing that he heard us talk about. He is they are both very much like us. And Sue and I worked together in Sylvan Beach last fall and immediately just liked each other. We have sort of this same mentality when it comes to the ghost world, the paranormal world.
Yeah.
And at one point, not to give too much away, but at one point during our investigation at the church, Sue was the first person I called when I stepped into a certain area and felt a really, really heavy energy presence. And I called her over and I said, Sue, do you feel this? I mean, we work that well together. So it's such a great feeling to know that there are other people, not just paranormal investigators, but other people that think the way we do and have the same outlook that we do as Sue and Damon from A.P.P.S.
Good to have them in the Sandy and Toddcast family. Can't wait to get them back on. Talk about the results of their investigation and have you guys tell your personal stories from it too. It'll be good.
Yeah, so much happened. And it, like I said earlier in the podcast, it was one of those investigations that sort of left my feathers a little ruffled as far as I was very unsettled afterwards. And I'm usually pretty drained after an investigation, but this sort of stayed with me for a couple of days because this was a little bit heavier than some of the other investigations I've been a part of.
All right. Well, here's the situation. I'm actually officially on vacation.
Yay.
And while I love you and I love the listeners, screw you, people. I'm going to go and enjoy some more of my campfire right now and check in with you this week. I think we've got a Woo Woo Wednesday or something planned.
We do.
Possibly.
We have a Woo Woo Wednesday. Eric Ferdinand Backlit coming back
That's
this
right,
Wednesday night. I double booked him. I love Eric. I double booked him and he was kind enough to say, sure, I'll do that. So this Wednesday, we'll have another Woo Woo Wednesday on our Facebook page, The Sandy and Toddcast. Be sure to join our group, Stay Weirdos, Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast. And you can also find my page for my paranormal group, the Fort Schuyler Paranormal Society, right on Facebook as well. We're just building that page up. So make sure you like it now because we'll have a lot of really cool stuff coming your way for the Fort Schuyler Paranormal Society.
All right. See you on a Woo Woo Wednesday. Get caught up on all of our past episodes as well and all the places you get your podcasts and check out all the videos that we've got on our Facebook page too. They go way, way back.
Thanks, guys.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
How many more miles left